Good day. This video will discuss about prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. I'm Mr. Ong from College Tingkatan 6 Sri Putra. In this lesson, you will study the cell theory and also identify the cellular components of prokaryotic cells as well as the cellular components of the typical plant cells and the animal cells. You will also compare the typical animals and plant cells as seen under electron microscope. At the end, you will learn how to compare the structure of prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. This is the history, okay, about how the cell is discovered, okay, by the inventions of the first light microscope, okay, that designed by the Anthony van Leeuwenhoek. The modern cell theory. The cells are the building blocks of life. Three statements constitute the cell theory. Cells is the fundamental unit of the structure and function in organisms. All organisms are composed of one or more cells. And all cells arise from pre-existing cells through cell division. So these are the fundamental statements, okay, for the cell theory. And this the cell theory can be expanded. Okay, there is an expanded version, okay, of the cell theory, which include the other three statements. They are: the cells carry genetic material passed to daughter cells during cell division, and all cells are essentially the same in chemical composition, and energy flow, okay, occurs within the cells, okay, such as the energy flow or the energy change in the metabolism and biochemical reactions. The cell theory has some important implications, which is the life is continuous. All those cells in bodies came from a single cell. They fertilize it, which came from the fusion or the fertilization of a sperm and an egg from parents and so on. The origin of life on Earth was marked by the origin of the first cell. A cell is the most fundamental unit of biological life, which can perform all the 7 life processes. Okay, you must still remember what are the life processes. A unicellular organism depends upon just one cell for all of its functions, whereas a multicellular organism has aggregations of cells specialized to perform different functions that collectively support the organisms. So from here, the cells can be divided into prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells, in which the prokaryotic cell is much smaller, okay, which have only range from 0.5 to 10 micrometer, okay, whereas the eukaryotic cells range from 10 to 100 micrometer. So pro here, the prokaryotic cells, pro here is before. Karyotic is the referring to the nucleus, so it's before nucleus. That means the prokaryotic cells has no nucleus, in which U is the true, okay, eukaryotic cell is the true, they have true nucleus, the cells which has true nucleus. So from here we can see the range of the prokaryotic cells and the eukaryotic cells. See, the size are quite different. Prokaryote, okay. If you want to use the prokaryotics, this is an adjective, okay, prokaryotic cells. If you want to refer to the organism or the nouns, we call it as prokaryote. So prokaryote includes the domains of eubacteria and the archaebacteria. Okay, so from here we can see all the organisms they share with the common ancestor. Okay, then these organisms can be divided into three main domains. Okay, three domains here. The first one is the bacteria domains and the domain of archaea and also the domain of eukarya. Okay, so the prokaryotes. Okay, prokaryotes are referring to the domain, the organisms in the domain bacteria and the domains archaea. Okay, so the example of prokaryotes are the bacteria, including the cyanobacteria and the archaea. So the bacteria and the archaebacteria, they are different. Huh? Okay, then after the domain will be the kingdoms. So it's a kingdom eubacteria and the kingdom of archaebacteria. So here for the domain eukarya, they have another 4 different kingdoms. A prokaryote is a simple unicellular organisms that lack an organized nucleus. As we know, the prokaryotic cells, okay, lack of nucleus or other membrane-bound organelles. That means the prokaryotes has no nucleus, which is consists of bounded with membrane as well. Okay, and also other membrane-bound organelles also absent. For example, mitochondrion, chloroplast, lysosome, and so on. So now we look at the nucleus, which is they have no nucleus, okay, but the DNA. Okay, the DNA of bacteria is not enclosed in the nucleus because they have no nucleus. Instead, the bacterial DNA is located in a nucleoid. This nucleoid is not an organelle. It is just a dense region in the cytoplasm where the bacteria's DNA is located or they are concentrated. Okay. In prokaryotes, most genes are found within a single circular molecule of DNA. So that means the prokaryote, for example, the bacteria's DNA, they have only consists of only a single, that means only one, okay, one circular DNA. And then the DNA is the double-stranded DNA, remember. Okay, so located within the nucleoid. And normally, they got a part of the DNA will attach, okay, will attach to the plasma membrane, okay, of the cell. The prokaryote DNA does not associate with histone protein as eukaryotic cells. So as you can see in the diagram, this is the prokaryotic cell. Here, this is the eukaryotic cells, and then the prokaryotic cell is consists of a single circular DNA, okay, single circular DNA, so has not does not associated with histone protein, okay. But when we compare to the eukaryotic cell, can see the DNA of the eukaryotic cell is not in circular form, okay, it is in a linear form, and then in which the DNA, okay, the double helix DNA, actually they are associated with histone protein. Okay, that means they coin with the histone proteins to form nucleosome. Then later will be compact and further coin into chromosome. So this is another difference okay, between the DNA of the prokaryotic cells, okay, as compared to the DNA of the eukaryotic cells. Okay, many bacteria may also have small circular DNA called the plasmid instead of the single circular DNA. And then the bacteria also have many smaller circular DNA, as you can see here. So this type of bacteria is called plasmids. Plasmid, they contain genes. Okay, they contain genes. They have phylogenetic advantages, such as antibiotic resistance gene. Okay, as you can see in here, This diagram, they show the plasmid, and the plasmid contain the antibiotic resistant genes. So these genes will enable the bacteria to resistant to certain antibiotic. And then these plasmids, they are replicable. Okay, that means they can be replicated and to be inherited, okay, to the daughter cells during the binary fission and conjugation. So because of this plasmid, they contain antibiotic resistant genes and also others unique characteristic. So these plasmid, they are used in biotechnology as a vector. Okay, vector means is the like the vehicle, okay, to carry, okay, a foreign DNA, okay, or the DNA from different species, okay, into the bacterium, so that the bacteria, once they divide by binary fission, so these plasmid also divide, and then they carry the foreign genes, so the foreign genes also divide. Okay. Most prokaryotic cells have cell walls, but the cell wall is not like in the plant cell. Okay, the cell walls of the prokaryotic cells contain peptidoglycan, okay, which are extracellular structure that enclose the entire cells, including the plasma membrane. As you can see in the diagram, here inside is the cytoplasm, and then assure the cytoplasm is enclosed with a plasma membrane. Okay, and then external to the plasma membrane is the cell wall. So this cell wall is the consists of peptidoglycan. As the terms you can see is, that means it's a peptide, is a protein, okay, that binds to the carbohydrate, okay, the glycan. Then exterior to the cell wall is the capsule. It's a capsule which protect the bacterial cells. So these capsules, actually, we also call it as a glycocalyx. Like eukaryotic cells, the prokaryotic cells have a plasma membrane that confine the contents of the cells. This one, as we discussed in the previous slide. And in some prokaryotic cells, the plasma membrane may be folded inward, or we call infolded, so to form mesosome. As you see in the diagram here, this plasma membrane, they are infolded to form the mesosome. So what are mesosomes? The mesosomes increase the internal surface area. So when you see they have infolded or they folded inward, that means they will increase the surface area. Okay. So when they increase the surface areas is for what? For the attachment of enzymes or pigments that carries on the metabolic activity. So such as cellular respiration. So that means this mesosome here, they contain the respiratory enzymes, okay, to enable the prokaryotic cells to carry out cellular respiration. And then some mesosome here, they also contain the photosynthetic pigment, which is called the bacterial chlorophyll, okay, bacterial chlorophyll. So they also for the purpose of metabolic activities such as photosynthesis. So this is the function of mesosome. Okay, ribosome. The ribosomes are found in the prokaryotic cells, okay, in the cytoplasm of prokaryotic cells. But the ribosome of the prokaryotic cell is different to those in the eukaryotic cells. In eukaryotic cells, the ribosomes are known as ATS ribosome, ATS ribosome, or we call it as a heavy ribosome. Okay, whereas the ribosomes in the prokaryotic cells is the large ribosome, which is known as the 70S ribosome. So S here is a verbal unit, where you will study in the ultra centrifugation later lah. Okay, so from here actually, previously you already learned the ribosome actually is made up by two ribosomal subunit. Okay, as you can see in eukaryotic cells. So the large ribosomal subunit is 60S, okay, the verbal, and the small ribosomal subunit, okay, has 40 verbal. Okay, so when these two they combine to form a functional ribosome, which is and have only 80 verbal. Okay, but for the ribosome in the eukaryotic cells or the eukaryotic cells, or the prokaryotic cells or the bacteria. So the large ribosomal subunit has a 50 verbal, and the smaller ribosomal subunit has a 30 verbal. So when they assemble to form a functional ribosome, which has only 70 verbal. Okay. So from here, this is, you can see the difference between the ribosome in the prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. Okay, other types of membrane includes organelles, okay, such as mitochondrion, okay, chloroplast, lysosome, okay, Golgi apparatus, are also absent, okay, absent in prokaryotic cells. So that means all these membrane enclosed or the membrane bound organelles are not found in prokaryotic cells. The prokaryotic cells also contain storage granules that hold the glycogen, lipid, or phosphate compounds. So that means the prokaryotic cells, they store glycogen as their energy storage and not the starch. The appendages of a bacteria, namely the flagella, you can see the flagellum here. Singular is a flagellum, plural is a flagella. Okay, the fibria, okay, this one. Okay, and conjugations pili, or we call pillars in the singular. Okay, this one longer a bit compared to the fibria. So they are made of proteins. Okay, they're made of proteins. Then flagella, okay, is a long fibrous project from the surface of the cells. Okay, so this is called flagellum. And then the function is used for locomotion. So how to locomote the organisms, the prokaryotic cells, is by propelling. Okay, so like the propelling, so like this. Okay. So their structure is different from the flagella found in the eukaryotic cells. They're totally different. And then some bacteria, they have the fibria. So these one they are the short appendages. Okay, they help them to attach, okay, to an appropriate surface. Okay, like they allow the adhesions to surface. Okay, conjugation pili. Conjugation pili, sometimes they are the functions, okay, for conjugations to take place. Okay, conjugation. So that means it is something like the sexual reproduction in the bacteria. So they are rigid tubular structure used by the bacteria to pass the plasmid from cells to cells. So that means during conjugation, these sex pillars, okay, they will join something like to form the bridge, okay, with another prokaryotic cells, so that the plasmid can be exchanged, to the other bacterial cells. So this one considered as the sexual reproduction in conjugation, in bacterial cells, conjugation. Okay, so this is what I show you. Okay, and I here just now this is a binary fission. Okay, so they are formed two identical daughter cells, but this one is through the conjugation, so they form the sex pillars. Okay, with the other bacterial cells. Structural comparison of prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. Prokaryotic cell is more small, is a more smaller okay, than the eukaryotic cell. As you can see here, this is the size for eukaryotic cells, whereas this is the size for the prokaryotic cells. Okay, eukaryotic cells, as you see here, these are the drawing, okay, for animal, typical animal and the typical plant cells as seen under the electron microscope. So in secondary school, you have learned, okay, the organelles, for example, nucleus, you learn it. Okay, nuclear envelope, maybe you know, but you didn't study it in detail. So that's why you also don't know the nuclear pore. So lysosome, you learned it before, and then this one sure. Cytosol, maybe you are first time you heard about the cytosol. Actually, it is related to cytoplasm. Later I'll explain to you the difference between cytosol and cytoplasm. Okay, Golgi apparatus, sure, this one you know the function. Okay, and then the peroxisome, I think you doesn't know about the peroxisome because you didn't study it in the secondary school. And also cytoskeleton, you also didn't study it. Okay, mitochondria, you study it. Smooth ER, okay, smooth endoplasmic reticulum, and the rough endoplasmic reticulum. This one you also studied quite detailed, okay, in the secondary school. And the centrosome, so actually is which is the centrioles, centrioles. Okay, the chromatin, this one you should know what is the chromatin, and the nucleus. Okay, nucleus, okay, the dense regions they found in nucleus of eukaryotic cells. Then we look at the typical plant cells, as seen under the electron microscope. Actually, they are similar to what they have, the organelle and the structure they have or they found in typical animal cells, except the presence of the lysosome only found in typical animal cells. And then most of the plant cell has no lysosome. Okay. Then central vacuole, okay. Central vacuole also found in the typical animal cells. Okay, this one is a nucleus. Okay, the same. And then in the typical plant cell, they have no centrosome. They have no centrosome. And they have what we call the chloroplast. Okay, but the animal cells has no chloroplast. But both they have mitochondrion. They have mitochondrion. Then the rest they have the same as in the eukaryotic cell, and except the cell wall. No cell wall in the animal cells. Okay, so this is how this is the organelles and the structures they found in the typical animal cells and the typical plant cell, okay, as seen under electron microscope. Okay. All right, now when we talk about eukaryotic cells, we want to compare with the prokaryotic cells. So we want to see the uniqueness characteristic, okay, of the eukaryotic cells. So one of the uniqueness characteristic of eukaryotic cells is compartmentalization. Okay, compartmentalization. Eukaryotic cells are compartmentalized. Okay, compartmentalized by membranes to form isolated region. As you can see here, there are many regions, okay, they found in the cells. Actually, they are separated or isolated by membrane. Okay, by membrane. Okay, so this one is known as compartmentalization. So most of the compartments of the eukaryotic cells, typically we call it as a membrane-bound organelles. Okay. So these membrane-bound organelles, they can carry out specialized function within the cells. Okay, within the cells simultaneously. Okay. so that the other biochemical reactions, okay, either the enzymes or the product or the reactants, so they does not what we call it disturbs the other function or the enzymatic reactions of the other membrane-bound organelles. Okay. So like as we say, the eukaryotic cells are characterized by highly organized membrane-bound organelles. That means only the eukaryotic cells have membrane-bound organelles. So these membrane-bound organelles such as nucleus, mitochondrion, chloroplast, endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus, and lysosome, and also etc. etc. Okay, the compartmentalization of eukaryotic cells enable the division of labor within the cell. So that means they can divide, the labor can be divided in different compartments of the cells within the cells. So that each membrane-bound organelles that can perform specialized function which come together to ensure the cell is capable of surviving as well as performing its role in an organisms independently, and then they also dependently. Okay, so the biochemical reaction in different in each organelle actually they're independently. Okay, but at the same time, all of these organelles that perform their specialized function, and then they can come together to ensure the survival of the plant cells. Okay, because they are interrelated. For example, in mitochondria, okay, they produce energy, the ATP. So the ATP can supply the energy for other cellular activity in the different organelles as well. Okay. Eukaryotic cells also contain non-membranous organelles, such as ribosome, centriole, microtubules. So these organelles are non-membranous organelles. All eukaryotic cells surrounded by the plasma membrane, as we know, and the nucleus is a compartment that houses the hereditary material. As you can see here, this is a nucleus, okay? And then this nucleus, within the nucleus is called the nucleoplasm, okay, nucleoplasm. And the part of the cells outside the nucleus, but they inside the plasma membrane, they are called cytoplasm. Cytoplasm. Various organelles are suspended within the fluid components of the cytoplasm. As I mentioned just now, the cytoplasm, they have a cytosol. Okay, and then these organelles are they suspended in the cytosol. Then they form cytoplasms. So that means it's cytosol plus, okay, the organelles and others structure. So we can call it as cytoplasm. So therefore, the term cytoplasms include both the cytosol and all the organelles other than the nucleus. So we call the region or the structure as cytoplasm. Many biochemical reactions taking place in eukaryotic cells require energy. So the mitochondria will produce energy in the form of ATP, okay, by aerobic respiration. And some organelles are present only in specific cells. For example, chloroplast. Okay, chloroplast is used to trap the sunlight for energy conversion, okay, in photosynthesis. So they only found in certain plant cells or alga cells. Plant cells also contain a large central membrane enclosed or the membrane-bound vacuole. Okay, so the function of the vacuole is to store, is used to store a lot of what we call a salt, okay, water, and other pigments, okay, and also the toxic and the waste product. Okay, so since they have a lot of this solute, okay, they accumulate in the vacuole, so the vacuole will absorb water. So when they absorb water, so they will expand, and then to provide turgidity, okay, to the plant cell. Okay, some eukaryotic cells, notably fungi, many algae, and plant cells are surrounded by cell wall, okay, external to the plasma membrane. For example, in the fungus cells, the cell wall form is made up of chitin. Okay, we call it as a chitinous cell wall. Okay, whereas in the algae, okay, the algal cells and the plant cells, they have the cellulose cell wall. Okay, the many specialized organelles of eukaryotic cells solve the problems associated with the large size. So the eukaryotic cells can be larger than prokaryotic cells because these eukaryotic cells, they contain large amount of organelles, okay, which are required, okay, for the cell survival. Eukaryotic cells also differ from prokaryotic cells in having a supporting framework of protein fibers, or we call it as cytoskeleton. And that means in the prokaryotic cells, and they have no such what we call a cytoskeleton. Okay, so cytoskeletons means is a protein fibers to support, okay, the structural shape of the cells, and also this cytoskeleton also they help to transport organelles and the vesicles to move around the cells. Okay, as you see, the mitochondrion, they can move from one part to the other part of the cells. Actually, it's by the cytoskeleton, the contraction and the of the protein fiber. Okay, then for the vesicle also, they can move from the rough endoplasmic reticulum to the Golgi apparatus for protein modification, and from the Golgi apparatus to be excreted, okay, in the plasma membrane. So this movement of the vesicle actually is they use the cytoskeleton, okay, for the movement. And then the cytoskeleton also exists with self movement. The cells when they want to move from one place to the other place, also the other place, they also requires the cytoskeleton. Okay, so this is the comparison as we can see just now. We've discussed it. So much scientific evidence show that mitochondria and chloroplasts arose from a large eukaryotic cells engulfed independent prokaryotes. You see, in mitochondria and chloroplasts, okay, they have a double membrane, these organelles, okay, and actually, in the mitochondrion, okay, or the chloroplast, they have a circular DNA presence in the mitochondria and chloroplast. So very similar to the prokaryotic cells. Okay, and at the same time, in what we call in the mitochondrion and also the chloroplast, they also contains 70S ribosome, okay, which is we call a small ribosome. Okay, they only found in the prokaryotic cells. So this relationship is refers to as the endosymbiotic theory. Okay, so what is endosymbiotic theory? So this is in the diagram here, you can see that once upon a time, the mitochondrion, okay, this one is the we call the aerobic bacteria. They are engulfed, they're engulfed by the eukaryotic cells. Okay. Then these eukaryotic cells, they are undergoing evolution. Okay, until now, okay, you can see they contain a large number of membrane-bound organelles. Okay, so why we have this endosymbiotic theory? This is because in the mitochondria, they contain the circular DNA, and also they have 70S ribosome, which are found only in prokaryotic cells. So same to the chloroplast. The chloroplast actually is a cyanobacteria, or we call a photosynthetic bacterium, okay, which is engulfed by the eukaryotic cells also, and then after they undergo evolution, So this the cells that will contain this what we call the mitochondria and the chloroplast as well. Okay, so this is known as endocytosis theory. Okay, now we look at the mitochondria here. Okay, and the chloroplast they're bound by a double membrane, the external membrane and the inner membrane. Okay, and they contains a single DNA, the single circular DNA as their own genetic material, and the 70S ribosome, as in prokaryotic cells. So the chloroplast and mitochondria can replicate during cell division. So that means during cell division, the cells or the prokaryotic cells, this is referring to the eukaryotic cells. So once the eukaryotic cells undergo mitosis, so that means before the mitosis, the chloroplast and the mitochondria, they enlarge and then they replicate into the other copy of organelles. Okay, comparisons between prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cells. So from here, I use a typical plant cells to compare with the prokaryotic cells. So very easy. Here you can see this one, they have no fibria. If they have, it's called a cilia, cilia similar. Okay, and then this one, okay, this is a 70S. Okay, so this one here, the ribosome is a ribosome, no ribosome here. So here ribosome is ATS. And then the bacterial DNA is found in the nucleoli, but here is they're enclosed with a nuclear membrane. All right, so the other like plasmid they don't have. Okay, the eukaryotic cell have not have this, and a capsule. Okay, the pilus, flagella in animal cells they have sometimes they have. Okay, so this is roughly the comparisons. Okay. You can see eukaryotic cells are larger and more complex than the prokaryotic cells, and the genetic material of the eukaryotic cell is enclosed in the nucleus, okay, which is a membrane-bound organelles, the largest one. And the eukaryotic DNA is associated with histone proteins, okay, as we show in the previous diagram. Okay, this DNA, eukaryotic DNA, they coil with the histone protein. Okay, so they are not naked DNA, but in the prokaryotic cells, okay, the DNA does not associated with histone protein, and then we call it as a naked DNA. Then the eukaryotic cells also contain other membrane-bound organelles in which the specific biochemical reactions take place, like the mitochondria, chloroplast, lysosome, Golgi apparatus, okay, endoplasmic reticulum, and so on. Okay, so this table here, they show the comparisons between prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. So first here you can see is here no nucleus, but here they have a nucleus. Okay, this nucleus double membrane bound nucleus. Okay, they're enclosed by two membrane. And then the DNA is not associated with the histone protein in the prokaryotic cells, but yes, in the eukaryotic cells. And the chromosomes found in the nucleoid region, whereas in eukaryotic cells, the chromosomes found in nucleus. In prokaryotic cell, okay, the prokaryotic cell has a single circular double strand of DNA, whereas the eukaryotic cell has more than 1 billion double strands of DNA. So in enzyme, you must always write, again, you must always repeat, the prokaryotic cell has a blah, 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 whereas eukaryotic cell has blah, 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 blah. And then we continue. The prokaryotic cell has several small rings of DNA called a plasmid, whereas in eukaryotic cells, they have no such plasmid. Okay, so you must use a complete sentence. Every time you must repeat prokaryotic cell and the eukaryotic cells. Okay, the prokaryotic cell has no membrane-bound organelles. Here you must mention what are the membrane-bound organelles that are absent in prokaryotic cells. Whereas in the eukaryotic cells, there has membrane-bound organelles such as lysosome, mitochondria, and blah blah blah. And then the ribosome in the prokaryotic cells 70S, whereas in the eukaryotic cells at the S, they can be found occur in as free ribosome or the ribosome that binds to endoplasmic reticulum. So they got two types of ribosome here. One is free, suspended in cytoplasm, whereas the other one is they attach to the endoplasmic reticulum. And prokaryotic cells undergo cell division, okay, by binary fission. So no spindle is formed here. No spindle is formed. Okay, but in eukaryotic cells, the cells divide by mitosis or the meiosis with the formation of spindle. Okay. Then the cell wall in the prokaryotic cell is composed of peptidoglycan, or sometimes we call it as murin. Whereas the cell wall of the plant cell and the algal cells, they are composed of cellulose. So in the fungal cell, the cell walls consist of or are composed of chitin. Plasma membrane in prokaryotic cells, the plasma membrane can carry out some critical metabolic processes, such as we call the mesosome here. Okay, whereas in eukaryotic cell, they have mitochondria for respiration, and the chloroplast for photosynthesis. Okay, the eukaryotic cell has its own control center, okay, which is the nucleus. Power plants, which is the mitochondria. Factories for making needed materials, okay, can be a lot. Okay, for example, ribosome is to synthesize protein. Okay, chloroplast, okay, is used to synthesize starch. Okay, the glucose. Okay, then can be converted into the sucrose, then starch. Okay, and other organelles. Okay, which can be used to synthesize. Okay, the needed materials. And then the eukaryotic cell also have packaging plants, which is the Golgi apparatus. Okay, internal transport system, which involve the cytoskeleton, okay, that transport or move one organelle from one place to the other place, and even a self-destruct system. This is called the apoptosis. So normally in eukaryotic cells, the apoptosis, or we call the program that cell, and they actually is triggered by the lysosome. Okay, the release of hydrolytic enzyme from lysosome. The eukaryotic cells can be seen as a system of interconnected organelles that work together to metabolize, regulate, and conduct life processes. So that means here you can see in eukaryotic cell, you can see it's like a system of interconnected organelles. Okay, for example, the nucleus communicate with ribosome, okay, in the cytoplasm. So how to communicate? In the nucleus, they have the chromosome, the DNA, so which contain the hereditary information. Then this information will be transcribed into the mRNA, okay, the messenger RNA, as you learned it before. Then they diffuse and then out to the cytoplasm, into the cytoplasm, and then they attach to the ribosome, so for protein synthesis. So that means the hereditary information from the nucleus already transfers to the ribosome and then translated into the protein, okay, or enzyme, or can be others, hormones and so on. Okay, and the organelles of the endomembrane system. Next lesson, you will study this endomembrane system. So that means they are related from the nucleus, okay, a nucleus, endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus, lysosome, and then the plasma membrane. Okay, so these organelles are called, they are found in the endomembrane system. So they communicate, okay, they communicate from each other. Okay, then mitochondria, they provide energy for these processes. Mitochondria, they undergo aerobic respiration, so they produce ATP. So the ATP will be used to provide the energy for the biochemical reactions. And then in certain type of cell, for example, the photosynthetic cells, they have chloroplast. So the chloroplast will convert the sunlight energy into the chemical energy. So this will provide nutrients to the cells and also to the other cells in the multicellular organisms. Then the specific molecules are produced inside or on the surface of the organelles. So are then transported around the cells by transport vesicle. So this transport vesicle, they involve the cytoskeleton. And communication with the energy-related organelles, like just now we say the mitochondria and the chloroplast, is less obvious, okay? But it does occur because they import particular molecules from the cytoplasm. The material or the substances they require, for example, the what we call the enzymes, okay, and then nucleotides, okay, they require by the DNA in the mitochondria and chloroplast, and also many substances are they required for the biochemical reactions that taken place in mitochondria and chloroplast, okay. So then the product of the mitochondria and also the chloroplast, okay, will be transported out from the organelles. Okay, so actually the communications occur. So that means in what we call the a eukaryotic cell actually is like a factory, or we can say it's like a city. Okay, so they have energy related organelles. Okay, so they also have a lot of the transport system. Okay, and then the communications occur between the structures and also organelles inside the cells. Then they have a control center, which is the nucleus, okay, to control all the cellular activities of the cells. Okay, so this is a summary. Okay, the summary from here can go through it. Okay, or this summary also is you can get it from my notes. So for example, the plasma membrane here, okay, and so blah blah blah, and the cell wall. This one do not found in animal cells. Okay, so here the structure. Okay, the function for each of the structure and the organelles. Plasma membrane is not the organelle. Nucleus also is not the organelles. Organelles and nucleus there. And also the lysosome, this one is do not found in a plant cell. Okay, most of the plant cells, they don't have this lysosome. Okay, then chloroplast found in photosynthetic cells. Okay, and then cilia and flagella do not found in the plant cell. Centriole do not found in the plant cells. Okay. All right. Okay, so for this video, you already learned about the cell theory and the cellular components in prokaryotic cells and also in the eukaryotic cells. Okay, eukaryotic cell here, we also study the typical plant cell and the typical animal cells. And also we compare the typical animals and the plant cell as seen under the electron microscope, as well as the comparisons between the prokaryotic cells and the eukaryotic cells. Okay, so for the coming videos, you will learn each of these cellular components and the organelles in the plants and also the animal cells. Okay, individually, I will produce a individual video for these cellular components. Okay, so the next lessons will be the cellular components and the structure for organelles and state their function. So for the next one will be we start with nucleus. Okay, so you will study identifies the nucleus. Okay, the structure of the nucleus and states the nucleus function. Okay, so that's all for this video, and thank you very much. Bye.